invite you today to create together with me some hope that we can give back to our oceans. Because we do owe so much to our oceans. The oceans, they gave us all life on Earth. The ocean nourishes us with its food and its fish. The ocean provides the air we breathe by producing oxygen, and it also gives us a very nice leisure activities like diving or surfing, or it's a lot. But the ocean cannot do this alone. The ocean also depends on something, and that's its ecosystems. And two very important ecosystems are coral reefs and coral gardens. This is where life is happening in the ocean. We can look at it like as an oasis in the vast desert of the open ocean. So life spreads from a coral garden in the rest of the ocean, and they are so important. But today I want to ask you, when you hear the word coral, what does come into your mind? When you see these pictures, where do you think they were taken? I would say, or most people tell me, it's mostly tropical reefs. It's sandy beaches, palm trees, warm, clear water. But that's absolutely not all of it. 2/3 of coral are living in much deeper and colder places. And we have beautiful and extensive coral gardens all along the European coast. Very few people are aware of their existence. And that's due to a concept which is out of sight, out of mind. They are not so easily accessible because the ocean is rougher, they are deeper, so we don't see them every day. And that's why we are not aware that they are there. But I can tell you, those coral gardens, they are as important as tropical reefs. Because the corals are forming a three-dimensional habitat on the ocean floor which would be otherwise flat. So they are providing shelter and habitat to thousands and thousands of other life on them. And they are nurseries to baby fish. So we would not have all these fish on our plates if there would not be the coral gardens out there. They are very important as well. And how it is with all important and beautiful things, our coral gardens are threatened. They're threatened like never before. And this is due to several reasons. From the tropical corals, we hear often it's climate change, it's coral bleaching, it's warming waters. And yes, we have these threats here in our corals too. But the most devastating effect has unregulated or illegal fishing. The problem lies in the rich biodiversity of a coral garden itself, because where there is a lot of fish, there's also the best fishing grounds. So the fishing vessels go there, they deploy the nets over the coral gardens, the corals get entangled, dragged to the seafloor, and then they are left to die, in their thousands. If you see this picture here, it's about 3 to 4 lobsters in contrast to 50 to 100 corals. And it's very common. Often the bycatch of the coral is much higher than the target fish. Obviously, this has devastating effects, because without our corals, we will also not have the fish any longer in the future. So we need to do something against that. And we can do something against it. You can do something against it. And the first thing is, we need to be aware that they exist. So today when you go home, I want you to tell every person that you encounter that we do have these beautiful coral gardens here, and they are important, they are threatened, and we need to save them. And then we can protect them. I'm not saying we need to protect the entire coastline, but we need to protect as much coral garden so the corals can recover and they can serve as a kind of nursery for other corals, right? So then there will be still fish to catch. But if you don't do anything, at some point everything will be dead. So protection would be the next step, and enforcement of protection. But what would we do if we find a coral garden, we want to protect it, and it's devastated? It's basically dead. So here we need to help the corals. We cannot just leave them alone because they would not recover. We need to aid them. And that is what we call restoration. There are various methods of restoration, and I want to show you today. But let's first have a little look into what a coral is. Let's understand the coral. So I'm going to take you back to school. And my first question is, do you know what a coral is? A rock, a plant, an animal? Animal? Yeah? Yes, a coral is an animal. In fact, a coral is an animal. And if you look closer to a coral branch, we will find that the animal consists of a lot of subunits. These subunits are called polyps, and they are all connected with each other. They have the same gut, and they share nutrients, but they're still subunits, and they form around them a skeleton. And what we see as a coral, it's basically a colony with a lot of little subunits all connected with each other, and a skeleton around them. So this means when a coral grows, it can just simply bud more of these little individuals and grows more skeleton around them. And that we can use for our first restoration method. We can help the corals through fragmenting healthy corals. We can go fragment a few branches from a big healthy coral and transplant them onto a degraded reef. And with some time, they will grow, they will bud more and grow more and become another big coral again. And this approach is great. It has been applied in the tropics a lot, and we were also already able to do it here. So it's quite easy to implement and has a lot of advantages. But it does has one big disadvantage, and that is we are losing diversity. Because we are always taking from the same coral colonies, right? We are cloning the coral. So our reef will, in the end, have a lot of clones from a few corals. But nowadays, we should know that diversity is super, super important, and that also counts for corals. So the populations, basically, they need to be resilient against external stressors, like climate change, rising ocean temperatures, and they are not if they are not diverse enough. So how can we bring more diversity into our restoration practice? For that, we need to understand one more thing about corals. Corals are animals, and as all animals, they can have sex. So we can have female and male coral colonies. We can also have them both sexes combined in one, so again, very diverse. But let's look at the most simple example. We have male and female coral colonies. So usually once a year they decide that they want to reproduce, and they release eggs and sperm in the water. And then a lot of mixing happens. A lot of different females and male are mixing their gametes in the water. And then at some point one sperm fertilizes one egg. And this egg then, it would turn into a coral larvae. So corals are sessile their entire life. That means they don't move a lot. They are always on the same place. But the coral larvae, the first stage in a coral life, this one can move. And this is also how corals spread. So once the little coral larvae has found its perfect place and forever home, it would settle down, it would transform into the first baby polyp, and this one would grow with time into an adult coral colony. What we can do now, we can use this mechanism. In our laboratory, we bring branches of diverse corals, different males and females in our lab. We let them spawn, we let them get fertilized, we get the baby coral. And then we can transplant the baby coral out in our degraded reefs. This approach is called coral seeding, because it reminds us like seeding a field, right, for plants, but we do it with corals, with animals instead. And then after some time, some of these baby corals will survive, and we will have another coral garden growing. And this coral garden is very diverse. So now you hear two very nice approaches for restoring coral gardens, and I think the best thing is combining them both together to have the highest yield. But we have one problem. This approach has been so far only been applied to tropical corals. So this was when I was seeing our coral gardens, and I was seeing how they are dying, and I was seeing, well, we need to do something, but what? Well, this is a great mechanism, but we need to be able to also apply this to our corals. So when I wanted to do my PhD, I decided this is what I'm going to do for my PhD. So I went to the fisher boats. I rescued 3 different types of corals, which are very common here. I brought them into the laboratory, and there I observed them very closely because we need to know a lot about their biology before we can even get offspring from them. So I found out when would they spawn, what mechanism would they use, because they all are a bit different. Like, what do they need, and what happens then? But in the end, I was able to get my first coral larvae. So, and from this species, they were actually purple, so that was the best part of it. And here they're looking for a substrate to settle on. I gave them different substrates because I would not know what they like, and they are very picky because they would stay there forever, right? So I was providing them with various substrates, and luckily, some of my substrates, they chose them. And here you see when they are attaching at the substrate, they form the first little mouth, they form the little tentacles, and they're becoming a real baby coral. And this made me a really, really proud coral mama. So, yeah, my babies. But it doesn't stop there. So I also need to know, what do my babies like? I needed to find out, what do they feed on, what are the conditions they like the most, how much current, how much nutrients, and so on and so on. So I did a lot of testing and a lot of different experiments. But in the end, I was even able to transplant my first baby corals out in our very first nursery in Zagreb. And now I'm observing their growth closely, and I'm comparing it with the growth of the ones I have in the aquarium to find out if it's better to transplant them straight ahead or keep them a bit longer in the aquarium and nurse them. So all of these results was groundbreaking because, as I said, like, this mechanism has not been applied in large scale in Europe. So what we need to do now, we need to apply it in large scale here, because we want to save our coral gardens. And what I wanted to convey today is, like, yes, there is a lot of bad things happening, and we hear it in the news that our ocean is dying. It can be freezing, it can be overwhelming, but we should not let us freeze, because there's a lot of things we can do, right? We are not in a bad place. We are in a very good place, actually, because nowadays, we do have the knowledge, we have the technology in our back, and as you saw, we can develop the methods. What we need to do now is we need to bring people together, and I'm not talking about scientists like me, I'm also talking about people like you with different abilities that can help and create to save our coral gardens and give back the hope to our ocean that it so urgently needs. Thank you.